thegearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
I'm rich, I'm wealthy, I'm JC Money.
Coming to you live from the Gear Network studios in Rochester, New York. This is the JC Money Show with your host, John Cimino, a.k.a. JC Money. And now, here's John.
Here I am, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this edition of the JC Money Show here on the Gear Radio Network. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you all listening anytime this feed pops up in your podcasting jukebox, I guess would be the term I would want to use for that. I have no idea. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you listening to the JC Money Show. The JC Money Show is a free podcast, but also can be supported by Patreon if you are so inclined. Feel free to visit patreon.com/IamJCMoney and sign up there. There's 3 different tiers that you can sign up for. You'll get this podcast commercial free completely, but as well you can get some other things too, especially as I begin to get my reps in, my proverbial podcasting reps in before what I deem is podcasting season, which will be during the sports season, the football season really. I don't want to say sports season. Sports season is around all year. And I guess you can argue football season is around all year, too. If you are someone like me who will occasionally delve into the world of spring football, that might be something that you do. And you may consider football season being a year-round thing. I don't know that I'm fully on board with that, though. I've tried to watch the spring leagues. I do watch the spring leagues. I'll pop them on background noise kind of thing. I love the game of football, so it's always nice to see football or hear football on in the background. But the spring league, for as much as they want to try, it doesn't carry the same like weight or sentiment, right? Like to me, there's a big difference between the cooler fall weather. You know, your windows open, you're kind of, you're in your sweats and whatever. If you're in the Northeast. If you're where I live, basically, in Rochester, New York, October, like late September, early to mid-October, even into November, you get that fall feeling, right? And you've got college football and the college football atmosphere going on. You've got the NFL going on. Everybody's all, throwing up their hands in celebration for different types of things. And it's just a vibe, especially that time of year. It's hard to replicate that in the springtime when most people are, I think football, part of its popularity is the fact that it's something to do very intense during the winter months, right? When we all have cabin fever going on long before the festival season begins, we're watching football and we're making the most of that. So I think as the weather warms up, especially here where we live in Western New York in the Northeast, as the weather warms up, people are wanting to go to baseball games. Baseball's kind of got that sentiment there for spring. People are going out and doing things. People are cleaning up their yards. People are, getting outside for the first time in several months, geographically depending, of course. So it's tough to sell spring football, I think, as being or holding the same level of equity as certainly the NFL, but even college football too. It's not the same thing, but I at least like spring football for the opportunity that it gives other aspiring football players. Without that gets their reps in, and we've heard success stories from football moving from the XFL or USFL, now it's called the United Football League, UFL, moving from there, the spring league, to a training camp in the NFL, to, a backup quarterback role or a backup position or even a spot starting. There was somebody in the Carolina Panthers, PJ Walker, I think was his name, that ended up earning a start in the Carolina Panthers. AJ McCarron has made his way to and from the NFL, back and forth again. He's like Mr. Spring right now. Luis Perez, not BLTD's Luis Perez, Gear Network's Luis Perez, my former wrestling manager. But Luis Perez, there's a Luis Perez in the spring football league. He's been in like every single spring football league ever created, and he's like the guy there, even though his Arlington Renegades are bottom of the barrel there. But either way, it's the springtime, closing in on summer, and spring football's kind of a hard sell, but hopefully it works out. Hopefully the ratings continue. I guess the ratings are actually doing pretty decent, which is nice to see. But unless you're in St. Louis, maybe in, DC, Washington, DC, crowds are not very good for some of the other ones. Birmingham, of course, the Birmingham Stallions have the best team, as they had in the 2 years of the USFL. They ran through that and won those. So Birmingham appears to have the football playing team like good, but St. Louis sets the league. St. Louis is what's keeping this league alive. Like their attendance, they're hitting $30,000-$40,000 in the dome, teaching the NFL a lesson. Take the Rams from us. We'll make spring football mean something here. And I just wish that, if it was going to be like that, I wish it was like that everywhere. Then that would really tell me that, football truly, truly is king. But what this tells me, what spring football has told me the past few years, is that, you have to really be a football diehard and the league has to be okay with the fact that people would rather watch it on DVR or playback than going into the stadiums and watching a game on a very hot summer day. So I don't know. I don't know how the subject got started talking about spring football here. I'm a one-man show today. But anywho, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to my spring soapbox. So this feed, it's going to be interesting. I've been doing a lot of soul searching in terms of what's next for a lot of things, particularly the JC Money Show, and inside, and also kind of a subsidiary of that is my old podcast called Listen In, which is a sports talk podcast. And for a long time I had both on separate feeds, but really I think for the best interest of the podcast and the brand, I think I'm going to consolidate the two. Listen In will begin flowing into the JC Money Show feed quite regularly once Brandon and I begin our normal cadence, likely towards the football season with that too, but having it mixed in. So you'll get the JC Money Show shenanigans. That's going to be the RSS feed. I want you all to make sure you're subscribed to the JC Money Show wherever you are, because outside of that, TJCMS and Listen In are going to live on this feed, and we're going to start pumping things out and keeping it going. And of course, the Patreon page will have the exact same thing, except it'll be uncut, uncensored, and without commercials there. So that is forthcoming. If you are subscribed to the JC Money Show, do nothing. Stay subscribed. If you are not subscribed to the JC Money Show, but you are subscribed to the Listen In, number one, how the hell are you listening to this? But number two, feel free to please subscribe to the JC Money Show, and you'll still get Listen In alerts as well. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn my attention to the most recent show for Upstate Pro Wrestling. Was Anniversary Anarchy 21, celebrating 21 years of Upstate Pro Wrestling. And it was the end to the cinematic story between myself, Mr. Rochester JC Money, and Chris Caden, whom is the head trainer of the FCWA, and obviously one of the top guys there at UPW. And if anything, it solidified to me, I hope it solidified that I also should be at least, thought of as one of the top guys. Not the top guy, but certainly one of. I would hope that the performance this past Saturday helped, create that image. But we did a lot, and I could go through the play-by-play on the match and everything that happened and whatever, but there's a couple of things that I want to stress with this. First off, I am totally fine. Physically, I am totally fine. There was a point in the match where I was going for my top rope splash, and based on where Caden was positioned in the ring, it would not have looked good had I executed it normally. So what I did was utilizing the cage, I scaled the ropes to the middle of the rope, which I was regretting doing, but I had already started the motion and the crowd was kind of getting into it. Oh my God, the crowd. I'll get into you guys in a minute, but I was getting into the motion and I had already gone there and just said, screw it. And was like, all right, time to splash. And I jumped off and I splashed. And when I landed, the best way I could describe it is if you ever gotten hit in the funny bone and you get that like shooting pain followed by the numbness and tingling. That's what happened to me. But it wasn't from like the elbow area. It was from the upper shoulder neck area on down through my hand. So for the last part of the match, I didn't have a whole lot of feeling in my arm. When I realized as I started regaining the feeling again that it wasn't dislocated or anything, I certainly was good to finish the match, but I had a bit of a difficult time moving it and feeling my hand up until just as I was leaving the ring was when the feeling was beginning to come back. So it was a little scary in the match when it happened. And a lot of people picked up on that because between the time I left the ring to the time that I went back to where my seat was in the back, which upstairs, it's a 2-level behind the scenes. It's 2 levels. And then kind of around the corner by where the office is was where I had my belongings and I was sitting in the locker room and the doctor came, checked up on me and everything. But between the time that I actually exited the ring to go upstairs to my corner, that the amount of messages that I received from people in the crowd asking if I was okay was absolutely heartwarming. It was unbelievable to me that people cared that much. And, that also to me told me, because some of the other things that happened in the match, they had asked like, oh my God, are you dead? And I have to be honest, the splash that I described with the feeling with the arm, that was the only thing in that entire match that truly impacted me enough to be like, wait a minute, to stall me. Everything else, perfectly fine. I could not have asked for a better crowd. Of the shows that I have worked, there's been a lot of shows where I've worked in front of a crowd and I've had to work a little bit to kind of get them in the mood. And then once they're in the mood, things go, right? I didn't have to do any of that this time. In fact, I really didn't have to do a whole lot at all this time. The crowd, very clearly, from a story perspective, the crowd wanted to see JC Money get his ass whooped. They would have accepted nothing less. And I think if we did something different than what we produced this past Saturday, I think it would have worked out, but I don't know that it would have worked out in the way that it ultimately ended up working out, where everybody went there wanting to see JC Money get his ass kicked, and they saw JC Money get his ass kicked. They wanted to see JC get his comeuppance. All the shenanigans he was pulling on Caden, all the shenanigans he was pulling on them, everything over the last 10 months of this storyline. They wanted to see JC be taught a lesson, and by God, he was. Obviously, still got his shots in, still did his thing or whatever, but at the end of the day, the crowd was very, very much behind Caden and behind me too. Obviously, they were behind the both of us, but cheering Caden and booing me. And based on the feedback that I've heard just from fans, from our peers, from even Caden himself, afterward, my own personal opinions too, and then, the opinions of those that matter behind the scenes in the booking side of things, the promoter and that, we had a very, very, very good match. And, honestly, as soon as, we got back, like, John McChesney, who was in the main event, was was in the Hall of Fame, inducted into the Hall of Fame, comes in and he's like, you guys tore that up. Great job. Like, very, very complimentary. And that was, pretty cool coming from him, because that's freaking John McChesney. You know what I mean? Like, and he came up specifically. Like, he was he was 2 matches after us. And while that other match was going on, was he preparing for the match? No, he came up to the both of us and was like, you guys did excellent, great job. Like, it just was cool. It was cool to see and be a part of something that, from a production standpoint, was done a little bit differently than most. It wasn't the typical, I'm going to kick your ass this Saturday, brother. No, we took everybody through different stages of this whole saga. And I hope that at the end of the day, when this particular story is looked back on from start to finish, I will admit the start was a little bit rocky because I wasn't quite sure where we were going with this. And as we were going along and continuing to go along, it started morphing from, I think, what it originally might have been designed to do, which is just give Caden another heel to work with, another bad guy to work with, to propel him, somewhere else or whatever. But instead, we ended up extending this. It was extended a couple of times. Like, I thought it was going to end in November, and then it was pushed into January to February. And then we were going to settle it in March. We were going to do the Last Man Standing in March. But then we had the Easter Bunny thing. We added that. And so it pushed this back to Anniversary Anarchy to cap it off. And just everything from top to bottom, production, especially production. Like, the UPW production team really made this sparkle, really. It's the best way I could put it, is they really made it sparkle. They really gave the cinematic effect. They made JC Money seem very dark, and they made Caden, they highlighted Caden finally getting to that point where on the day of the show, he wasn't waiting. It wasn't the normal pre-show shenanigans that you were used to seeing with JC Money. It was JC Money getting his ass kicked, and Caden having enough of the weeks and months of JC getting one up on him mentally or physically, attacking him, like those kinds of things, right? It just was done so well, and I can't wait to see the playback. But I want to say thank you to everybody that was involved with that story. As far as I go, I'm not done. I'm not retired yet. That's not for another couple of years in ring. But I don't know what's next as far as what I'm doing, but I know it'll be meaningful. So I will ask that y'all hang around, see what's next, and give us a good shot. And Hamlin Beach is the next show. It's Saturday, June 29th. It's at Hamlin Beach, 3 p.m. A free show. So you don't have to spend any money. I mean, you got to spend money on gas, probably. Gas is expensive. Get your ass out to Hamlin, but it's going to be a good time. Great time. I'm going to be there. Whether I'm wrestling or commentating or whatever, I'm going to be there. It's going to be awesome. Hopefully the weather holds up. Fingers crossed. Mother Nature, know you've been drunk this spring here in this area, but now June 29th, we'll be in summer. School will be out. We'll be at the beach. Bro, work with us. That'd be great. So more information on that will be coming out in the weeks to come. And as well, I'm really going to give the conscious effort to start conducting interviews again and just having conversations with different wrestlers that come through. Obviously, I was very, very, very tied up on Saturday, so I was unable to secure any interviews then, but I also didn't ask. So now I'm going to be asking. So very soon we'll start having a little bit more interviews and back and forth dialect. Plus, as well, it's not just a wrestling podcast here, talking sports. So I'm having my sports buddies pop on. We're going to talk sports, going to talk shop, talk life, talk different things. We are going to become a show about nothing and a show about everything. So stick around for that. And I appreciate you hanging around. And every time these feeds, every time the episode pops up and you click on it, you listen and you give me feedback. I appreciate that. Keep that coming. And there will be more to come as the weeks and months progress. But again, I want to say thank you to everybody. There we go. Production. Wonderful. Thanks for tuning in and listening to my 20-plus minute soapbox. So not very many commercials on the free feed here. No commercials on the Patreon page if you are so inclined. Again, patreon.com/IMJCmoney. $2 tier for the blogs, $3 tier for podcasts without the commercials, and the $4 or $5 tier. I think it's $5. Is it $5? $5. $2, $3, $5. $5 gets you the whole shebang. All the things plus the hidden podcasts that most people want to hear but nobody knows exists. It lies behind that paywall. Interesting. And yes, I do speak about people that openly and freely speak about me on that forum. So, and I'll continue to do so because F 'em. So long, everybody. Good night now. Flava Flav, yeah, boy!
Yeah, boy!
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.